So I'm going to call the June 13th meeting of the BFRW committee to order. Dustin or somebody, if you could take a roll call.
Roger Hiringa,
I'm here.
Todd Byrather,
Here.
Dan Young. I'm not seeing in our meeting today. Angela Haupt. See ya. Katie Sheehan.
Here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Tom Handy.
Here.
All righty. With that, we have a quorum.
Hey, is there anybody from the public that would like to introduce themselves? You recognize, I guess. And I'm not seeing anybody.
We have a couple hands. I'll get them going. We have Tim Atterbury up first.
Yeah, Tim Atterbury, Associated General Contractors of Washington, representing 700 general contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers right here in the state of Washington.
Gotcha. And Roger, just so you know, when you're looking at the panel or the list, there's two tabs up at the top. You can flip back and forth.
I was just looking at for the photos, and so yeah, I've got the Indy list back up. So.
All right, next up we have Ariel Brenner.
Hi, Ariel Brenner, New Buildings Institute, here for item 5.
And then Matthew Hink.
Matthew Hink with Cal Portland Company, and I'm also here for item 5.
All righty, Corey Shaw. Oops, I'm sorry, Corey. Go ahead, Corey.
Sorry, Dustin. Yeah, Corey Shaw, Washington Aggregate and Concrete Association, here for item number 5 as well.
Awesome. John Spanier.
Hi, I'm John Spanier. I'm an architect with Smith Group Architecture out of Seattle, and I am also here for item 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Deepa Sabarajan.
Hi, Deepa Sabarajan, Climate Solutions. I'm here for item number 4. At the last BFRW meeting, my colleague Alton and I was testifying in my place on this, and the tag had some questions for us, so I'm here to respond to those for item number 4. Thanks.
And last, we have Rachel Jameson.
Good morning, Rachel Jameson, American Wood Council, here for item number 5.
And then we have no more hands. If anybody else, oh, we have Ken Brulette. Give me 1 second, Ken. There you go.
All right, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm actually here for item number 6, other business, and the other business will just be the IRC submittal process and how come we're not getting responses back that somebody has received our submittal. So that would be my only question. Thanks.
Well,
hoping that somehow that gets answered so I don't have to sit around and wait till number 6, but we'll see.
I can answer for you, Ken. I'm backlogged. I got your email. I'm trying to respond to them as quickly as possible. And I should have just shot one off when I got your email, but I have received your proposal.
Okay, I just didn't know if I had more than one proposal. I just want to make sure that people are submitting proposals. They're actually getting an email. Is not even an automated email going back that they received it.
No, we don't have an automated system for that process. And so as I'm trying to get to all the emails that are coming in lately, I'm trying to get to the oldest ones first, and they're just not every single one's getting hit on the day that they come in. So you can expect emails from me, but we do have the ones that you've submitted.
All right, thanks. All right, bye guys.
Thanks, Ken. Anybody else? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2, review and approve the agenda. If I could have a motion.
We had one more hand pop up for Michelle Lambert.
Okay, yep.
Hi, sorry about that. I just joined a couple of minutes late. This is Michelle Lambert from the Carbon Leadership Forum, here for item number 5.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. I'll try to keep my eye on that attendee list, but moving on to agenda item 2, if I could have a motion and second for the agenda, and then we can have discussion.
Move to approve the agenda.
Thanks. Thanks, Angela. I have one question comment under other business, and I'm going to ask Todd. I was not at the last meeting, but there was an other business item that came up from Ken about correlation. And I'm wondering if that got resolved. And we can jump to the minutes from the May 30th meeting.
One second here.
And, you know, if it didn't, we could maybe just list it under other business and we can address it at that point. That would be fine with me.
Oh, we haven't had a chance to resolve that issue yet.
Okay, okay. Maybe we list that other under other business and we can talk about it if we've got time at the end of the meeting. So any other questions, comments about the agenda? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. Agenda item number 3, review and approve the minutes. So we have May 9th and May 30th. And Dustin, if you can page through those.
Coming up first, we have the May 9th minutes. And that's all those. And then I think I still have the other ones open. And here are the May 30th minutes. And we didn't have quorum at that meeting, so no movement was made on items. And that is the end of those minutes.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes in a second and then any discussion?
So moved.
Thank you, Angela.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 4. And I just want to first thank Angela and Todd for taking the question on at the May 30th meeting. I believe we have made progress, and I am just trying to I'm pulling. I kind of want to couch, particularly we have agenda item 4 and agenda item 5. I just want to make sure everybody is clear about the task before us as the BFRW committee. These are the last 2 proposals that have been sent to the BFRW committee. We have meetings set up. I'm hoping I get them all right. Today, in 2 weeks on the 27th of June. I think we have a meeting on Wednesday, July 2nd. And a meeting on we have one more meeting, do we not, Dustin?
Yeah, I believe July 18th.
July 18th, and by the end of July 18th, our committee has been tasked by the full council to look at these proposals, take additional comment, and return them to the council for action. So we, at the end of the July 18th meeting, we need to have recommendations on both of these that get sent back to the state building code council. So I just we have 4 meetings in front of us. At the end of those 4 meetings, we need to take action and send these back to the council for full action. So I just wanted to remind everybody. So moving to the EV charging item going up.
Can I just we had
Yes.
a revision 2 put together by Todd and Angela, and also received after the last meeting. We had one more round of comments come in from BIAW. I'm not
Okay.
seeing Patrick on our attendees list here today. And I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at those, but I want to make sure that people are aware that we did get another BIW recommendation after that meeting.
Okay. Go ahead, Todd.
Yes, and I also don't see Kathleen, and if ready, Chair, I can give a little bit of a summary of what we did.
I would like that. I wanted to also make one more comment. The intent, as a committee, I guess that's just part of my initial comments, but we need to make progress. My plan moving forward is to bifurcate or focus our discussion on committee discussion, allowing for time for the public to make comments, but we do need to focus our discussions on allowing the committee to look at these issues, identify issues, and move forward. So yes, Todd, if you can go ahead, and I think my plan on the EV charging is to initially have committee discussion, and then we will see where we go at the end and talk about additional public comments. So go ahead, Todd, if you can summarize for us. And we've got two versions that are up on the screen, and I actually would like to make sure I understand which is which. So
Okay, and Angela, jump in anytime, please. So Angela and I did our best last meeting, and it was a good session. So we've gone really deep this year in hearings and multiple work sessions on this. So what you're seeing before you, look at red and blue. So red was action. I don't remember, Dustin, I just couldn't remember what day we took action on that to say this is the draft to work off of. And that was offered on the website as a Word doc. The blue then represents only my revisions based off of what I thought we talked about at the last session. So if anything, this is our introducing this version so we can compare revision 1, which I'll describe as very minimal, closer to what was proposed, the scope what was proposed in the tag last fall. Revision 2 now represents significant editorial changes, I would characterize it as, but it starts to go further, and so we have to have a discussion as a committee and as a council if any of these changes go further than we think was the scope proposed in the petitions. Now, I'll note on that, while these are in the triennial cycle as external petitions, this also was a legislative mandated requirement last cycle. So we have to kind of have that discussion as a council, balancing something which was a legislative mandate. Some of this is in statute, and that's what we've struggled with both cycles of meeting things that are in RCW and capturing them in this code, and then also understanding the history from 3 years ago, why certain decisions were made, and how we can perhaps clean it up. So when you look at this, you'll see a lot of introduction of new definitions, and that was offered by Patrick in one of the revisions. And Angela and I, we discussed in that meeting, and I would characterize it as came to some sort of acknowledgement that aligning more with IECC definitions may be desirable. So now we can look at how extensive that is and decide if that's really what we thought we were going to get. But I do think, I'll conclude, I do think it is cleaner. I do think these definitions probably were evolving at the same time at the ICC level that the state was trying to deal with this issue last cycle. So I think these are probably better and more aligned with I-codes. So if you scroll down, again, the major decision point that I think we've already addressed is in the table. And that's the bottom where we all call it right size to 10, 10, and 40 to align with what is anticipated EV adoption if you remember quickly, I won't go too deep into it. Immediate adoption in the first column, 3 to 5 year aligned with code cycle or 5-year power plan updates in the EV ready. And then finally, an additional 40%. And those are all cumulative as you go left to right, to anticipate a 20-year horizon of EV adoption. So that would equal 60% EV adoption statewide. All the other changes in that table are blended from some of the proposals, especially with Patrick's BIW proposals. They are not, in my intent, changing what was above in an exception. It is simply separating them out by occupancy so that it's in a table format. If we don't like that, we can go back and try to clean up the exception that was above. If you scroll up, that's crossed out now. The one challenge I had was remembering in that exception 2.2 why the previous council thought that one of 200 parking spaces was okay, given the RCW, the statute that says in A, E, and M, only employee parking spaces allowed. I didn't address that here. I just flagged it for the committee and council to discuss. I simply don't remember the history of it, and that'd be a substantive change. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, I will make my own comments. I think any editorial changes that we can make are good. Obviously, anytime we can clean up and align our Washington State code with the ICC, which, yes, that is continuing to move and change, is good. So in general, I approve with a lot of the editorial changes, although Todd, I'm kind of curious. I mean, I'm looking even at the paragraph 429.2, the second line from the bottom, electric vehicle is crossed out and then electric vehicle is added. So some of these
that's an edit that is then signifying that is now in a formal definition. So it's simply
I see you put it under in italics.
It's just in italics, and so the proper way to do it is to cross out the previous one, and yeah.
Okay.
Gets busy, but that's, I think, the correct way to do it.
Yeah. And then I will just to let the public know, I am reaching out to some, what I don't want to call them old-time council members, but council members that were most likely involved in the process a few years back on a few past code cycles, to see if we can try to track down the history of exception 2.2. So we will work on trying to define that, or understand why that exception was added. Are there any other comments people have?
The last one.
Go ahead.
The last one I'll make is, if you go back on the table, please, Dustin. Angela, I don't know if you look deeper into this, but I, on the call, got confused with that exception. Why, if you go back up to the exception, maybe start there. In my mind, this exception was where we had 9 parking spaces. I guess it's a little further up. I'm looking for the residential loophole is what I'm going to call it. Where it says that
Yeah, it's exception number 1, I think, is what you're talking about, right?
I believe so. Yes, if parking spaces, thank you, Angela. Yes. I got confused on the spot when you say except for group A, E, and M with less than 10 parking spaces. So that would include R. And now you scroll down to the table, and the table as previously written, if you look in that first section there, if it said, I'm sorry, if you look in group R occupancies where it said buildings that do not contain more than 2 dwelling units, well, that's less than 10. So was there this built-in loophole that you can avoid having to have anything in a group R in a townhome, for example?
That was 10 parking spaces, not 10 dwelling units, I think, isn't it?
And that's right. And so now when you look to the table, the other proposal change that I put in there was now trying to get column 1 to focus on spaces and be consistent about space. No, in column 1,
Oh, sorry.
that each one of those is now referencing spaces, even in the dwelling unit. So anyway, I think it's something we need to think about and try to process and let the public process as we said we would post this.
I guess my question though with what you did there, I don't know about you guys, but I've reviewed houses, single family and duplexes that have garages that have more than 10 cars in them. Or spaces. It's just our area. And so you would now be requiring EV charging stations for those.
Well, I think the EV ready still is triggered by that middle column, obviously, right? I'm simply saying that on the left, we're trying to say this column is about, the spaces. So for example, in that last one, shared spaces. And then that definition is up above parking spaces. And that's consistent through the language.
You didn't though, so you said dedicated spaces on site or within accessory dwelling units for individual dwelling units. So when you change it to the number of spaces, or you change it to spaces, you don't have a number associated with that. So for group R occupancies, dedicated spaces on site or within accessory structures for individual dwellings, you're just saying if they have those spaces, now they could have one parking stall or a 4-story R3 like townhouse or whatever, and you're saying they have to have an EV ready space.
I think that's what the intent was before, unless I'm wrong, but I think there was that could be that messy interpretation of it could be avoided with the way the language is currently written.
I see what you're saying up above and stuff. I have to process this a little bit.
And I'm even reviewing this after a couple weeks, so let's dig in again and make sure that this is cleaner.
Tom, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about the employee spaces section there, where on some of these small units, they don't probably have employees, maybe, or are they service personnel that might come in and do the yard work? Or, I mean, what is that supposed to encompass? Full-time employees, part-time people that might come in, or just exactly what?
So usually that's dedicated employee parking. Like if they've got an employee parking lot, or they've got spaces dedicated just to employees, not just because they have employees and okay, you have 10 employees, so we're going to count 10 spaces. It's usually dedicated spaces or area.
So in a small residential unit, if they don't have any employees or they won't be required to have any employee spaces.
This is under group A, E, and M occupancies, not R.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
And Tom, this is what we need to unpack from last time. This is the struggle that was had, because does that mean they are marked? How is that enforceable? I think that was some of the nature of the deeper conversation of 1 and 200 and so forth. And I don't think we can probably solve that problem today on the spot. We need to do more research.
So I'm trying to understand too, and I think I'm getting more and more clear. Excuse me. So I appreciate the direction of the clarifications that we've done. The first two groups, A, E, and M, BFI, HI, and S occupancies, all calculated on spaces. So there is somewhere else in the code where you calculate how many spaces are required. Then you would go to this table to figure out how many have to be EV spaces, EV ready, or EV capable. That makes sense to me. the group R occupancies, however, we jump into the dwelling units. So we're calculating everything on dwelling units rather than parking spaces. And that's where, and I believe, and I don't have the RCW up in front of me, but I believe that that is the direction of the RCW. But I am a little confused about if you go to exception, well, that's a, okay. What was the exception? Exception number 1, except for group A, E, and M, so that would include R. If you don't have, I'm confused about if you don't have 10 parking spaces, so R is included under, under exception 1. So now we're talking about calculating the number of parking spaces for R rather than dwelling units. So what I like, I think what would be more clear is if you're going into group R, everything is calculated on the number of dwelling units. You don't mix parking spaces requirements with dwelling units. You just calculate dwelling units, and that's what you use to. And maybe that's not possible, I'm not sure, but that's where I get stuck as I try to understand this. I'm trying to figure out exactly what you really understand, clarify exactly how you're calculating it. So I'm gonna, Todd, if you've got your hand up, if you can comment, or if you've got other questions, that's fine. But
yeah, this is the issue that needs to be resolved and discussed by the council, and so we need to take time, research this, and again, remember one of Patrick's proposals was to shift from the number of spaces on multifamily, particularly, to number of units. And so we have to answer that question as a council. Take, for example, and I gave the example of where zoning or market drives let's say a 24 unit garden walk-up, more of a suburban setting, market might be driving that to a parking factor of 2. So what does the council and the law state? Should that be parked at the number of parking spaces that the market was driving or zoning was driving, or should it be parked at the number of dwelling units? So that could be literally cutting those in half. So that's a question in front of the council. The other one needs to be carefully addressed, because I think the intent of that table in those first 2 rows are targeting more of detached or duplexes, or maybe a townhome that's falling under R3 or something, R4, I'm sorry. No, R3, and with a dedicated tuck under garage or a dedicated space. I think we need to be very clear what our intent is there, if there is a sign or a dedicated space for a unit versus a shared space. And that, I was trying to make the distinction there, and I don't know if I've perfected it. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
okay, Tom?
Yeah, one other question, and sorry if this is naive, but is there a point where there might be less than 10 spots required, and therefore 10% would equal less than 1?
Tom, I have questions in all of this. I walked away with more questions last time than answers. And for example, in that group BFHIS, what allows us to say 9 or fewer spaces not required? I don't know that aligns with the statute, but that needs to be something that needs to be unpacked from why was that provision put in there, and why is that allowed?
Although that whole section, is that not, I mean, I know it's in the table, but isn't that basically defined up above by one of the exceptions, the 10%?
Right, but I don't see that in statute. And so some determination was made, maybe for small business disadvantage or something, that 9 or fewer spaces was allowed in there. But I would not call that consistent with statute, to my knowledge.
And that wouldn't occur under A, E, or M?
A, E, and M by statute are very specific, that is not required for employee spaces.
It is only required for employees.
I'm sorry, only required for
Yeah.
employees. Yeah.
So, but there wouldn't be a situation where less than 10 spaces in those classifications.
It's a good question. I whether or not, I don't know whether those occupancies would ever have that. I don't know. These are all good questions.
Okay. I was just wondering if somewhere there needed to be one or more somewhere. I mean, if you're trying to do at least one, I don't know.
I think what we've unpacked is this is hard, and they did their best last cycle, and we have to decide how far we want to go to clean it up this cycle.
Okay,
We have one hand up in the attendees.
okay, go ahead.
Deepa?
Yeah, Deepa, actually, your hand has been up. I'm not sure if it has remained up from previously or
Yes.
if it. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. So again, Deepa Sivarajan, Climate Solution, I was testifying because I could not be there, and it sounded like the council had some questions based on our testimony. And so my understanding was the first question was asking with this overall for what was previously the category of all other group R occupancies and the percentage of spaces, how asking for 60% total, broadly within the category of EV ready spaces, how that is defensible based on projections of EV adoption. However, I'm seeing that 60% is being retained in this proposal. So is that something that I should address or just move on to other comments?
So Deepa, your sound was a little bit breaking up, but Todd, did you understand?
I'm not sure if the council understands my question.
Deepa, was it on that bottom row, which is the main petition right now, right? I hope it's clear that it's cumulative 10 plus 10 plus 40 would target that 60% 2045 projection. Is that what your understanding is also?
Well, that was my question, was whether there was a question, whether the council was questioning why 60% at all, but it sounds like that is not an issue. So then breakdown between particularly between EV ready and EV capable spaces, and I appreciate the perspective here in this council and in this committee and that are there, but I think to echo.
Deepa, you're cutting out, but if we can scroll down to the bottom, Dustin, and maybe Deepa, you'll be able to come back here. We went through the methodology last time, so all the way to the methodology to the table from the power plan. Dustin, oh, maybe we don't have it in this version. There we go. So we went through the basis last time with your colleague, and proposed that where this alignment comes from, and that highlighted in gray in that Washington forecast model out of the Northwest Power and Conservation Council power plan. We said to the council, is this acceptable that 2025 is obviously current 5%? It has to be bottomed out at 10% per statute. By 2030, we would target that 20% total. So that would be 10 plus 10 for the EV ready. And then finally, that 20-year projection at 2045 would be 57 or 60%. So we targeted that as appropriate for EV capable. Kathleen, I forget Kathleen's last name, I don't see her online here, from King County, then raised an important point that perhaps this model is even updated already for the next power plan cycle. And so she was going to look into whether the Northwest Power and Conservation Council would make that available to us. And if those numbers are different, then we can put that in front of the council, whether we want to align with those numbers if they're different.
And so Deepa, your hand is still up. Did Todd answer your questions?
Sorry, I actually had to drop off and come back on my phone. But I think, yes, I think that thank you, Todd. I think you answered my questions about the 60%. I did want to speak to the breakdown in the current proposal between EV ready and EV capable spaces. Can everyone hear me okay this time?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. My apologies for technical difficulties. One thing I wanted to mention, Kathleen Petrie unfortunately is on vacation. That's why she was not able to be here. I'm going to try to, I don't represent King County, but I think we're aligned on this. And we both share the concern about rolling back the number of EV ready spaces in all other group R occupancies from 25% to 10% in favor of more EV capable spaces. And this is primarily, I think, a matter of cost savings. The difference between building an EV-ready space and an EV-capable space is fairly insignificant upfront, but the savings are definitely better with EV-ready spaces. And as a result, we're seeing jurisdictions across the country, but also including in Washington, move away from the EV-capable category altogether. And that includes places that have lower rates of EV adoption than Washington, like Chicago and Denver. And here in Washington, King County has moved away from EV capable spaces. So I would really encourage the council or the committee not to roll back the existing 25% of EV ready spaces. I know that builders have shared that they would prefer to pay those costs down the line rather than up front. But when you're talking about multifamily operators, they're going to be the tenant in the future is really important. And it would be short-sighted, I think, to go backwards from where we are with EV ready spaces, thinking that EV capable, just is the same. I mean, I know that the committee doesn't think they're the same, but thinking that they're, equivalent savings, and they are not. So if there are any questions on that piece, please feel free to let me know. Kathleen is the expert here. I can also share questions with her.
Thank you, Deepa. I have I guess a question and a response. I think my response is our purpose here is from a BFRW is to go through additional comments and make sure that this proposal is I'm going to couch this as clean as possible. And I think that we're doing that. I think that the numbers, and I believe, Todd, that we got approval from the council, or the council approved basically, this is the right basis, using the Northwest Power Council as the basis, and the 60%. My assumption is, at the end of July full council meeting, these proposals will go into CR 102. And after that, there will be a period for full public comment. And so my perspective is that the question as to whether accepting the 10 or 40, rather than should it be 25 and 35, that's I think a valid question that you bring up. I believe that would be something that we would address at the CR 102 public this fall, after it gets published in CR 102. My comment, so that's my response. My comment is, my understanding is that there is a larger cost difference between capable and ready. So your assumption that the reason for aligning it the way we have, although Todd makes a good case that we've suggested that 2030 gets us to 20%, and so we're accommodating that in the first two columns. Now I lost my train of thought. My understanding is that there is a fair amount of cost. So yes, it is my support of the 10-10-40 is based on, can we accommodate those while also being aware of the fact that our occupancies and residential units are expensive, and we are trying to accommodate the construction of more units. So making it easier. So reducing cost while meeting these requirements is I think a goal that I support. So that's my comments. And now I've got 3 hands up. Deepa, do you want to respond to that? And then I'll let Todd.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. So first of all, just wanted to name, I support using the Northwest Power Council's projections in terms of the overall percentage. I think that makes sense. The only thing I would caution, I think, is not to be looking too short term in terms of that. But it sounds like this council or this committee is happy with the 60%. So as far as EV ready versus EV capable, I think, firstly, it's a little challenging, honestly, to find cost comparisons between EV ready and EV capable. But what I have found certainly doesn't suggest that it is more overall, the overall costs of building an EV ready space and then retrofitting it to be a fully EV charging space is certainly not more than an EV ready space. There are some estimates that say, especially for smaller number of spaces, that it's about equivalent between EV ready and EV capable. But as you increase the number of parking spaces in a parking lot, those differences, the savings for EV ready spaces are higher, and that increases with each parking spot. So given that I don't believe that there is a scenario in which EV capable ultimately costs more than EV ready when you're ultimately looking at the retrofit costs, I think it would be smart not to, again, go backwards on the number of EV ready spaces that we have. I think that would be my response as well to the idea of, putting this through the CR 102 process. If we are, hoping to figure out the number of spaces in the public process rather than at this committee, then I would encourage this committee to stay with what we have rather than to make a change and then change it back. I know that I believe that Kathleen, her perspective has been, rather than rolling back EV ready and adding more EV capable to increase the number to 60%, I believe that her perspective is actually, we'd rather just go back to what it is right now than even lose the EV ready spaces in favor of more EV capable percentage. I have not looked into this myself, so Climate Solutions doesn't yet have a position on that. But I do think that if we are putting something forward to the CR 102 process with the idea that it'll be informed by public comment, then to me it would make more sense to stick with what the existing code is rather than to take it back and ask folks their opinion on putting it at the number it used to be.
Okay, thank you, Angela.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm also happy to share some of the cost data that I found with the committee, so I can send that by email. Thanks.
Well, I think so. I'm gonna Angela, before I have you speak, my assumption for us moving forward after today is to take this proposal, and there's a whole nother, Patrick does have some other edits that he suggested that I think we need to try to address, and I'm trying to limit our time today so that we can move forward and get into agenda item number 5. But I'm not sure that we're going to be done today. I don't envision that we're going to pass this and move it forward. So I think that we need to, as a committee, kind of decide, take a look at the whole thing. I think that we're going to update this version, move forward, and at our next meeting, people can raise questions. And then I also would think any cost data that we have. So we have 3 proposals. Those proposals had varying cost data included. And I think as a committee, we do need to go back and revisit the numbers that people have provided and suggested as far as the economic impact. So Angela, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I was just reading this, so studies provided. Okay, I'm starting to get a little bit confused on myself because so I think the difference in costs that we had talked about when we changed these percentages isn't just, you know, the difference is that you have to actually run the circuit and, you know, put it at a, you know, end it at a board or whatever, or circuit outlet. It's also having to provide the space for the future installation of equipment that will be required in order to hook them up and things like that. But I guess when I was going back and I'm looking at the definitions and things, so the EV ready has the raceway. I took it out, but receptacle. I'm looking at the definitions on this document. Are the EV capable and the EV ready switched? Because I'm reading the EV capable as needing the raceway and electrical distribution equipment space. Oh, is that the actual charging station?
Nope, just the space.
But I mean, that's where that is. That's the space for the charging station, not the space for the actual electrical equipment necessary to hook up.
I think that's my understanding of how IECC defines it. Yes.
Okay.
But
okay. Yeah, I won't worry about that. That's fine. But yeah, I think that was where we had discussed was that it was more, yeah, there was more to the cost than just, you know, putting the wiring in. And I know that those numbers were something we did go back and forth a lot on. And that was kind of one of the things that we all sort of did come to a consensus on. So I would say I would be in favor of leaving them this way as the council's suggestion. And then it would kind of then be someone, when we go to the public testimony, then they would need to provide a justifiable excuse or justification for us to then change it versus staying with the same and somebody needing to justify moving it to this. So I think this should definitely stay as our base for what we are going to submit forward.
And when you say this, you mean the 10-10-40?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah, just a real quick comment. One of the other discussion items we had about this is that, you know, other technologies may intervene in that time period too. And so I agree to keep it as it is and you know, kind of overbuild it if we don't necessarily have to.
Okay, Todd.
Yeah, and I think we're probably getting ready to table this, but just to remind everybody the questions in front of us here. Is this new basis preferable with the forecasting from the power plan? If so, is 0, 5-year, and 10-year appropriate? If that's the case, 10 plus 10 plus 40 exceeds that per statute, but doesn't overrun it by, you know, 20-some%. And again, in the discussions, this is a statewide baseline. So we're also trying to factor in that some counties have very low single-digit adoption rates. Some have closer to 10%. And it's always the ability for those jurisdictions or counties to adjust that number and increase it. And so it's most likely the buildable lands counties on the west side that that would maybe take that kind of action and have this, you know, I'm going to say sophistication, the ability to do so. And then finally, yes, when we say 505, we could say that middle horizon where you also have to include transformers and so forth, and that's a significant cost. Could be that 10-year horizon, but we've heard very clearly that's outrunning the capitalization of those physical assets, that those won't be realized for 10 years. And that's a big ask on infrastructure to have an asset sitting there idle when we know, like to Tom's point, that technology may very well change in that time period also. So that's the basis, and that's what has to be, you know, discussed at the council level. So with that, Chair, are you ready for a motion to table?
I have one comment and then yes.
Okay. Okay.
My comment, Todd, is the 0520 that you talked about makes sense to me, but my question to you would be, I am questioning in my mind again, what's the 0? you know, this code will go into effect in the end of 2026. There probably won't be any projects delivered until 28 or 20, call it 2028. So is the 5-year timeline 2033? And there is a big jump from 20 to 35%. So that's a question I'm asking myself. And I think that that's something we need to really becomes a public and I think a full council, you know, where do we want to land on this? So,
Okay.
so I would like to ask, for a motion to table this. However, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we should update the version that is on the that has been submitted with the blue and accept the changes that are in there. And this is where I'm going to have to, I would like to be able to read through this and make sure that I have a clarity on what this reads without all of the cross outs and colors and everything. So my suggestion is we update this, accept all of the changes, and have one more pass through, you know, reviewing that version. So Tom, your hand's up.
Yeah, would that include the changes in red as well then? Because they were prior to the blue.
I think what I would like to say is the blue are editorial and the red are responding to, in general, the blue are editorial and the red are responding to the proposal specifically. So I guess I would like to still identify the red as, okay, these are the numbers. This is the big question in front of us that we got several proposals on, but the blue really is cleaning it up and it is editorial. So I would ask for a motion to table, but exactly how we move forward, I would like to see a clean version. We can still identify the red, but accept all of the blue.
So one of the clarification on that, in some areas, the blue supersedes the red, which then complicates it a little bit.
They are revisions. So yeah, we could clean it up and make it all.
Well, then let's do it. Let's update the version as long as it's a Word version so that people can go through and accept all and read it as a final version. That's fine with me. So
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? I'm going to then all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? So Dustin, can you confirm we lost Katie? We do still, with 4 of us, have a quorum, correct?
Yes, sir.
With 3 of us, do we not have do I have to vote as the chair in order to pass?
You do not have to vote as the chair, and I guess with 3 we would always have a odd number going. So if there's a split vote there, you shouldn't have the need to vote. If we had Katie here and we had a 2v2 vote, then you might need to cast your ballot.
Okay. All right. All right. So I so Todd, I'm going to ask you, there was Patrick submitted another proposal and there were some other suggestions that he made there. And I know one of them was to clarify, are they additive, which I think they are, but we have not addressed his comments completely, have we?
I'll review. I think I did. Again, it's a blended approach. Yeah. I made the best decision I could to try to capture what we discussed last time, but so not everything is included, but
okay.
Yeah.
I would just ask, let's make sure that his comments are at least reviewed and to be honest, if we're pushing this out for 2 more weeks, you can, from a document management perspective, we have one version that we're gonna have up on the website, and you can review again to see if we've included everything, and if not, you can expect it, so. Okay, it is time for us to move on to agenda item number 5, embodied carbon proposal. And I would like to start this by, there was a statement that I wrote and was published on the website. If we can, Dustin, if you can bring that up, and I am going to read that. The statement is meant to kind of set the ground rules for how we are going to move forward to bring to hear additional comment and address the questions. So this statement is meant to clarify the process for the BFRW committee related to code change proposal 24 GP1 118. Per the motion passed at the February 6, 2025 SBCC meeting, the BFRW committee is, in quotes, directed to coordinate and manage proposals where there is additional editorial cleanup and or public input requests. This motion also requires that all proposals are to be returned to the standing committees by July 11th for final review and approval by the standing committees by July 18th, 2025. Code change proposal 24 GP1 118 revision 4 BFRW 4 has been posted on the SBCC website since approximately the 13th of May 2025. I was not sure of the exact date, and should be considered the proposal under consideration by the BFRW. Per the notice published by the SBCC on May 14th, 2025, there will be a BFRW committee. There will be BFRW committee meetings on June 13th, June 27th, July 2nd, and July 18th to consider submitted comments to proposal 118 prior to forwarding it back to the council at the July 18th, 2025 meeting. Considerable verbal and written comments have been made on this proposal and are either included in the BFRW version posted or have been expressed in past BFRW meetings. Moving forward, all comments on this proposal must be sent to the SBC staff in writing and submitted prior to 5 p.m. on June 23rd. So that's 10 days from today. The staff will determine if these proposals fall under the additional editorial cleanup, i.e. technical in nature, or additional public input, i.e. general in nature. The BFRW committee will debate and act on all comments and may at their discretion request an explanation by the maker of the comment and or the proponent of the proposal if appropriate. And I've noticed, put a notice down there. I didn't attach it to the document, but this motion can be seen at 3 hours and 40 minutes of the recording of the February 6th SBCC meeting. So again, I indicated this at the beginning of our meeting. We have 4 meetings, and at the end of those 4 meetings, we have to send something back to the full council, and we are trying to work on having robust but conversations about the changes to the proposal while focusing it on this committee. This committee is tasked with taking these proposals, trying to hear additional comment and incorporating them. So with that, Dustin.
We had a hand come up in the attendees.
Corey, go ahead.
Thanks, Roger. I just had a quick question. My take on this is that the committee won't be entertaining any public comment past June 23rd. Is that what I'm reading?
Yeah. Official public comment, again, if you have submitted questions or comments, we certainly may ask you and to clarify, make sure we understand what your comments are. Todd?
We have
yes.
one more hand in the attendees pop up real quick.
All right, I will. Todd, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I was just going to clarify that if something moves forward as a recommendation and the council forwards it to CR 102, obviously there are 2 hearings scheduled in the fall. So
Yes, the idea is not that this is the very end of public comment. It is, we are going to, after the 23rd, we have three meetings left for this committee to review all of the questions and respond to public comment and figure out exactly what we are forwarding on back to the full council. So, Matthew.
Hi, Matt Hink with Cal Portland. Thank you. I just wanted to ask, when you return this to the full council, is one of the possible things that one of the possible outcomes that could be returned that this is not the appropriate thing to do or place to do it? Or is it, I guess what I'm getting at is it determined that something will be returned back to the council, whether it's the current version or a revised version of what you have? Or is it possible that a determination would be made that this is not appropriate?
This committee would certainly entertain a motion to recommend to the full council that this not move forward. I think that is a possible. Although I am going to suggest to you, Matthew, there are in fact in the statement, there are technical questions and there are general. I thought about labeling that as political, but more general comments. My personal opinion is that those general comments should be determined by the full council, not just this committee. That we are focusing more on the technical aspects, but that's my singular opinion. If this committee decided, you know what, we should not move this forward, then we could have a motion and that would be the recommendation back to the full council. Todd?
Yeah, and I'll just repeat that technically, in my opinion, what has happened is this was an external petition in the triennial cycle. The IBC tag recommended it for full adoption by the council. That passed to the BFRW committee, which is this committee of council members. And that was moved all the way up to the council. So the council accepted it. That's the terminology we use. So they accepted this petition. The council is no longer being petitioned, and then this proposal, the EV charger and the damper, were moved back down to committee for technical work. So that's what we're doing today is technical work. The council's already received the petition. Now we're making technical recommendations back to the council.
Okay, Tim, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it's Tim with AGC. I just because there's folks that are new to the committee's work here from the public, and then there's new committee members. But just my recollection is that I think it was 3 years ago that this committee reviewed this issue and decided to not send it to the full council. So I guess with that history, I'm just wondering, you know, sort of why we're here again and why we're relitigating. There was great comments, lots of public input, lots of great comments from State Building Code Council members at the committee level where we're at now. And so I'm just wondering why are we back here, and was the previous decision faulty?
Tim, the response that I have is I was on the IBC committee 3 years ago, although I was brand new to the committee. Number one, the proposals are not necessarily identical. Number two, the tag last time, the proposal came in at the very end. We've had much more robust discussions about the proposal this time. And so the proposals are not identical. And then I also would just say there's often proposals come back multiple times, certainly at the ICC level. And in fact, just because even whether it's at the SBCC level or the ICC level, proposals are often voted down one time, and then they come back and there's further discussion, and then they are passed at a future time. So that's the response that I had. I don't know if anybody else has other comments. Okay, Dustin, the other thing that before we jump into it, and I am going to ask for a bio break here in a few minutes, but Dustin, if you could pull up the spreadsheet that we have created. And this spreadsheet does not necessarily include any additional items, but that's why it wasn't posted originally. And plus, this is something that we are pulling together for a way for us to manage the comments that we have and a process for this committee to go through and discuss the various items. So it is a spreadsheet that the staff will keep, that Dustin will keep. If you can go up just a little bit, Dustin, we have basically broken this out into two sections: legislative intent. And I think that, Dustin, we may want to reword that as, again, according to my comment, I call them general comments. So they are intended to be, general comments about the process itself or the proposal itself. And then the second item, you have code intent. I would just, in parentheses, maybe say technical comments. So the suggestion idea is that we will start to take in comments from people up until the 23rd, so for 10 days. And we will incorporate those comments into here. I think, Dustin, we have the action, so that action is meant to be, what action does this committee take? We may want to add a column that is comments. So I think that this committee may take an action and have comments or, consideration. So again, this is a document we have started, just a way for us to figure out exactly how this committee moves forward and the actions we take on various comments. You raised your hand. Did I?
Well, that's fine. I'm okay with putting a comment column. I was gonna say we could just put the notes into consideration, because again, these aren't positions that anyone, well, in this case, the legislators we're trying to summarize some of those positions. But when we get to individual committee members, for example, when my name is next to it, it's not that I'm taking that position. I'm asking a question for the committee to discuss, and an action isn't necessarily we are doing that, as guidance on how we would revise, amend the current version, so we can keep converging on a potential solution.
Yes.
So
my idea is the consideration is there's an opinion and a consideration. The two columns on the right are kind of the final action that we take. So we may pass, and the comment may be as edited, or include this change, or so that's my idea. So Matthew, you have your hand up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you laying out what you're trying to accomplish here, and I appreciate the understanding. I'm just going to say just one general comment before we move forward. I mean, so there are many of us on this call today in industry that were not part of the original text that was proposed to the council. So we are in a position where we had no input on the text that was forwarded to the building council and ultimately down to this group. And it now becomes very difficult for us as a group, because the only thing we can do is try to alter the original text or get it removed from the bill or from the proposal. And there's a lot of us on this group, industry members, who really don't think that's a very fair process. Like, we were not part of writing the original code. In fact, we were walled out, and none of our inputs really been received and incorporated in this code. And I see that you're providing us an opportunity now, but like, I've worked in policy a long time. It's always much harder to remove the words from paper or get them changed. And so I think I just wanted to express to you the frustration that comes from us in industry, for me, boils down to that.
Okay, Rachel?
Good morning. Rachel Jameson, Vice President, Markets and Sustainability from the American Wood Council. I would like to just emphasize what Matt just said. We share a similar perspective at American Wood Council, as Matt and others are also. We recognize the importance of addressing embodied carbon in building materials. We also recognize the importance of robust stakeholder engagement to do so. And that stakeholder engagement was lacking in this. And it's unfortunate, as I think that on the call, there are quite a few folks in industry who would have been and who remain very open to a constructive dialogue on right placement for this requirement, and B, right language, right regulation for this requirement. And I think it's actually a lost opportunity for the people of Washington, who, you're here to serve. I live in Washington as well, to deny that engagement on a product that will likely impact affordability of buildings that they occupy, either to live or to work in. So just want to again emphasize what was said in the letter that was submitted yesterday, and continue to wish that there was an appetite for really collaborative, constructive work on an important issue.
Angela?
I guess I have a question for Matthew and Rachel. This came from the tag, correct? Back to the council and back down to this subcommittee. So did people in industry not participate in the tag discussions on this proposal at all?
So we never wrote, we didn't write any of the code. Right. So MBI has submitted the code. They wrote the code in cooperation with the Carbon Leadership Forum, and they were in control of all the words on the paper before it got to you. Now, yes, there was a phone call where we made some comments. None of the things that I commented to MBI and CLF have made it into the text. So when I talk about it being an unfair process, like when you are in control of the words on paper as a group and managing what comments that you accept from Matt Hink and you don't, there is the feeling that you are being walled off. So that's what I'm trying to express to you. So yes, now I see that this group is in control of it and you will accept our comments. But again, we have gotten to this point with pretty much no input at all or ability from our group to be equal stakeholders at the table helping to craft this language. And as Rachel just said, the opportunity is for the NGOs and the industry groups and the architects to sit down and work on the code in a constructive way together. And we wouldn't be at this point today fighting about it if that had happened.
So I guess though my comment on that would be that this is how the tag process and our proposals work is that a proponent submits what they want in the code, their words. They don't have to collaborate. Yes, it's always a good idea to collaborate, but then it goes to the tag, and that's where outside interests have the opportunity for their input and to try to work to get it changed. I agree with you that there was not enough collaboration on this or on the report that was submitted for the legislative mandate. But I mean, that is how it works with proposals for the process. So, I mean, the point where this should have been started to be hashed out was in the tag. So I guess I'm not sure if that happened or not, but yeah, I'll give it to Todd now. Yeah.
I'm gonna call on Todd, and then Ariel Brenner would be next.
Yeah, I just want to comment that thank you for the comments, but this is a well-defined process. It is not only in statute, it is in our policies and procedures. This is the triennial cycle. Anyone can submit an external petition. It can be considered by the stakeholder subject matter experts, which we call the technical advisory group, and move through the committee all the way to the full council to come back for additional work. This additional step is recognizing that this is a difficult issue and needs very high level coordination with other state policy agencies, so forth. That's what we're trying to do here. This has been a very open process. And I also have taken a lot of effort in my position as materials representative to reach out to the trade associations, and have met many times, including with some of the comments here, 3 times with one trade association just to seek input on this. So I'm not frustrated, but also I want to move forward on talking about and doing our work here, not talking about process, because here we are. And I think we've been very transparent about what we are doing and how we're trying to get to the best possible solution for the state of Washington.
I'm gonna add to Todd's comment. I just looked up the original proposal. Proposal was sent to the tag on September 19th, 2024. So this proposal has been in front of the full SBC in various forms and discussed for the last 9 months. So Ariel, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, hi, thanks. Yeah, Ariel Brenner from the New Buildings Institute. I just want to kind of express my appreciation for these sentiments, but also kind of throughout this process, we have come at this with an attitude of wanting to put forward something that is workable for industry. We've responded to those comments throughout the process. I'm a little, I guess, disheartened a bit to hear from AWC and Cal Portland in particular, because those comments were incorporated into both those organizations were incorporated into the final draft. If you look at the one that is currently posted as the one being for comment, the prescriptive table has been updated for sentiments that Cal Portland has put forward. Sophie at AWC has been a very active and helpful participant in weighing in on our draft throughout the process. And I've really valued that partnership. So yeah, I just want to reiterate that we are here to be partners and are not trying to kind of put forward something that is not workable.
Okay, Corey and then Rachel.
Thanks, Roger and team. I think my primary comment is going to be focused on the lack of stakeholdering, which was acknowledged by your committee that it didn't take place. And per our letter we did submit yesterday, and I think it's posted on the website, and I appreciate that you made it available to the public prior to the meeting. I think this would be the time for the committee to even evaluate whether this is a worthy proposal to even bring back to the full council. And this would be an opportunity for everybody to take a step back and allow for some time for some additional stakeholdering and some work to take place. Because it's clear that this document isn't functioning and working, and there are some serious concerns with it. So that would be my request, is that the committee evaluate whether or not this is the time to even move this forward and actually put a pause to the process and just hang on to it where it is and let it be reworked at a future date.
Thank you, Corey. I'm just gonna make one correction. One committee member suggested that there was not enough stakeholder input or conversation. That was not something that the committee agreed to, and I'm not sure that the whole committee feels as though there has not been enough conversation about it. I know that's not my opinion. As I stated, we've had this in front of us for 9 months, and we've had many meetings talking about it, and there has been stakeholder conversations with both the proponent and at the TAG meetings, etc. So Rachel, and then Angela, if you've got another comment, but Rachel, go ahead.
Yeah, and hey, everybody. I just want to also just acknowledge that, you know, right place and right time. As we have continued to dig into the ongoing process of the Buy Clean, Buy Fair work group, this seems a bit preemptive, getting it right time and right place. And this goes to MBI. I mean, again, we do and are sincerely wanting to work together, but it has to be right time and right place. And so, you know, is this the right time? I don't think so, given other efforts underway in the state. And the right place, like I said when I previously spoke, you know, we're happy to have conversations about this and continue to have conversations about this. Is the building code the right place? And that's where at AWC, we do not believe it is. It was unanimously denied at the international building code level, not more than, you know, 2 months ago, a couple months ago. So it's, you know, let's be the innovators that we know we are in Washington, and, you know, create a green code like Cal Green has, right place this, and, you know, have the conversations in a deep and meaningful way, you know, talking to also what Matt said, where we're all holding the pen and we're all having opportunities to hold the pen together instead of responding to. So I think let's have the opportunity to provide our input, hold the pen, provide input on other people's input, and ensure that the time and the place is right for the proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Rachel. I see no more hands. I'm going to move on to the next, and that is I do want to recognize the letter, if I can get it from, it was posted, the letter from Corey Shaw was the author, although there were a number of groups that signed on to it. The letter is available on the website for everybody to read. I will suggest or ask Dustin to add that to our spreadsheet there. It didn't occur yet, but it's happening as we speak. Or the spreadsheet that we have to talk about issues are ongoing. So Dustin, if we can add this letter to that list in the upper section, I think we will, as a committee, we will address that and discuss it. So, and I think that's in even response, and I'm sorry, I don't know if it was Rachel or Corey suggested that this committee have a discussion right now as to whether this is appropriate. I think that will be something that sorry, I'm not watching Dustin edit it. That's something that we will take a look at and consider at some point. I'm not sure today is the right time for that. So so I want to recognize that the letter is there. I wanted to assure everybody that this committee will take a look at the letter, discuss it. My intent, Corey, go ahead.
Thanks, Roger. I did want to, thank you for making that part of the spreadsheet, and two, to just clarify that it was a collaborative document. I was not the sole author.
Yeah.
Everybody who signed on did weigh in and provide edits and comments on that document.
Yeah, I had intended to recognize that. I hope I did. So thank you for clarifying. All right. Max, your hand is up. What I am going to do is I'll call on Max and let him speak, and then I am going to have us have a 5-minute break because I need a 5-minute break. So Max, go ahead.
Hello, thank you, Roger. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, yeah, thank you. I just want to pipe in here from AISC, the American Institute of Steel Construction. We are not listed on the opposition letter as currently before you, but I want to just acknowledge that the collaboration that AISC has had with NBI on similar proposals is not, and the comments that we had on this proposal are currently not reflected in the current proposal before you. So I would have to add my AISC's stance to the opposition letter, just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to pause the meeting. What's the right word? We're gonna pause the meeting for 5 minutes for a break for everybody. We will be back at 10:31. All right. We are back. I want to make sure that we have, all right, Tom's here, Todd's here. I think Anvil is here, so I'm not sure that we need to take official attendance again. I would like to, this is something that we don't always get I guess one of the questions that we have in front of us, and in fact, it's up on the spreadsheet that we have there for us to look at, and that is legislative intent. There, I recognize that there is ongoing work in the legislature around the embodied carbon issue, and at the same time, we are considering this proposal that would create an appendix. I see the Representative Dewar, who is involved in that, is on, and I'm going to ask Representative Dewar if you would like to comment, open it up before we move on to our conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roger, for recognizing me. I just want to thank you all for your work. I know this is a meaty topic, and you know, there's ongoing work with the tag on the Buy Clean Buy Fair, and then this appendix. As far as legislative intent, I can only speak for myself, although I'm just one small part of the legislature. But I think this is a topic that we know is moving forward. It's not going to go away, and if I may state my preference in terms of what my intent is, it took 3 years to pass Buy Clean Buy Fair. And while I understand the comments of having a lengthier discussion around like the 3 compliance pathway, we don't get to update the code for another 3 years. And so my preference is that we move the needle as far as we can move the needle in this update. And we know that maybe in another 3 years, I'll have passed an embodied carbon 3 compliance pathway bill to provide greater guidance. But I think the more that we can do to set the expectations up and the recognition of the importance of limiting our embodied carbon, I think the better. And so I am in full support of having that appendix, because it is, it's by choice. No, it's not forcing anyone to do anything, but it gives some guidance to cities that aren't familiar with all the ins and outs, somewhere to start. And so that would be my preference, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dewar. And I also want to recognize from the Department of Commerce, Hannah Waterstrat is on the call, and Hannah, I don't know if she's an attendee. If
I got her moved up to the group
Okay.
if she wants, or she can unmute if she wants.
So Hannah, if you would like to make any comments, feel free.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much. Good morning. I've heard a lot of really good discussion here, and as a couple folks on the industry side have mentioned, we're also having really good discussions in the Buy Clean and Buy Fair technical work group. I feel like that group is a good group to be thinking about all this stuff. We don't have the ability to prevent these code proposals or any legislative proposals from moving forward. So that, just want to put it out there that the way that I see this is that the technical work group for Buy Clean and Buy Fair will, be responsive to kind of whatever policy and code context exists and happens, and we'll continue to weigh in and provide feedback in that forum, regardless of what happens here.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to say, on the spreadsheet in front of you, there are legislators who provided a letter, I believe, or an email. I forget exactly where we got that, in opposition for us moving forward. Happy to have them on one of our calls to discuss it at any point as well. So moving forward, next steps, I wanted to.
Roger, if you may, I just want to point out that
Yes.
we have the letters in opposition and support of this on our embodied carbon page
Thank you.
here up at the top. So if people want to read those, they're there for public consumption.
Okay, and then Dustin, actually, what I would ask you to clarify is I have two versions of the proposal up in front of me, and I just want to, I'm conscious of document control. I know that there's many versions out there. So there is where is the BFRW?
It's down at the very bottom of this one.
Okay.
And the most recent document that we received with comments there is right above it. I wanted to keep the Word document at the bottom just to keep it the kind of accessible and visible to folks. And if it serves the purpose, I can make it larger and put it in a different spot if anybody feels that would serve the purpose better.
I would like to have that set aside so that people that would like to pull up the Word document to make suggested edits, it's very clear that this is the Word document that you should be using, and we will keep that up to date so that if for instance, this committee makes an edit to it, it would be officially, okay, we are editing that document, and that document will then be updated on the website.
Then the plan will be to move it to the top of this list and make it larger. And I might create a table there to set it aside as well.
Okay. And can you click on that version, the Word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any specific section I should?
I just wanted to go down. I'm trying to make sure I have the right one. Okay, I have that up in front of me. I just wanted to make sure I think I have that as I'm referring to it. Yeah, I think so.
This is the version at our May 9th meeting. The motion made was to use the document that had the Carbon Leadership Forum comments, and get into it one second. Shoot, I gotta scroll farther, I'm sorry. To use okay, I'm scrolling too far through my stuff. But we used the most recent document. It had the Carbon Leadership Forum comments, and also I believe one of the concrete associations kind of comments in there. And so we used that Word document to publish that one and name it as the BFRW document. It's a Northwest Concrete Masonry Association comments.
Dustin, which tab do you go to get to our page?
So if you want to find this, the quickest way is to go to the meeting schedules and agendas. I know that that's not very intuitive, but that's how this website was designed when I picked it up. And I do want to make the tag pages a little more intuitive for folks, but this is where it's at now. You'll scroll down to the building code tag page.
Okay.
And then on this page, we have both the electric vehicle charging infrastructure page and the embodied carbon page. And so if
Okay.
you click there, that brings us to the embodied carbon page, and likewise the electric vehicle charging infrastructure page.
Okay, thank you. I know I set it aside a number of different times, and then when I'm trying to bring it back up, it is sometimes I'm challenged to try to find the right version. So I'm going to go, Todd, if you, when we go to the spreadsheet, number one, there are a whole list of, well, there are 2 items right now. Yeah, if you could pull that up. I'm aware of 3 items that are going to be under the legislative intent general comments. I would like us, my suggestion is the primary focus now are what I believe that we can look at as some of the technical comments. And so, Todd, you've provided several comments on that spreadsheet, and I believe the whole building LCA pathway document that got posted was something that you put together. So I would ask you to kind of talk about your opinion down there, the consideration, and again, I guess explain or take a look at, explain for us what your thoughts on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'll be very clear. If you weren't here earlier, this type of structure is to go through different issues by many stakeholders. So this isn't necessarily my opinion. This is capturing our representation. And on this committee, my representation is technically as the chair of the council, but also overlaps with chair of the IBC Technical Advisory Group. In addition, I am the representative of manufacturers, installers, and suppliers of materials. So I will do my best when appropriate to state those opinions. Yet that's probably more appropriate if it were at the full council level. So in general, as we get into the technical piece for your request, Chair, I do want to frame this because we have to come in high level as a council and establish what we are doing here. And I think we've been very clear, as I stated earlier. I want to thank Representative Dewar for first joining us, but also I've reached out individually in my own independent research, but also as the chair to try to capture more of the intent in these 2 letters. And it's rare and I think beneficial in this case that we have 2 letters from the legislature and they happen to be in opposition to each other. But when we really get into the discussion about it, I also reached out to Representative Theringer and Representative Barno. Representative Theringer did entertain a call, and we had a very, very positive call to make sure that I could try to capture and bring back to this group their concerns. And in that, the question before the council, if this were to move forward as an appendix, is I break it down into really this triple prong approach, and I think we can frame this and address this with each individual section or methodology and help guide this and decide whether or not it's an all of the above or it's individual or it's one of the 3. And I would be careful. I'll carefully frame Representative Theringer's concerns, but they're very clear in the letter that there is current work going on in another agency. If you treat the State Building Code Council as a sub-agency with rulemaking authority, but technically we operate more as a legislative committee. This is a very open public process that's unique to our state. In some ways, it's not an administrative agency only writing code, for example, like in California. So we have the opportunity here to, in my opinion, align these different efforts, and those efforts are the policy making in the political sphere. I think questions before should be what is appropriate there so that this body doesn't overstep rulemaking authority. That's often one of the concerns that comes from stakeholders, but also from the legislature. The authority for this body is granted by the legislature, so they can always take it away, but they also can mandate and guide it. And that's what we see typically and it works in energy, for example. The mandates are usually set for energy and emissions by the legislature. The building code tries to capture that into an enforceable and a document that then is thrown to the local jurisdiction. So I'm saying a lot of things that people already know, but I'm trying to come high level down into this of how I think this can help us provide the scoping. So so laying that out there, if you scroll down, if you want to talk more specifically about what I've put on here, that first item takes this head on, talking about the three-prong approach. The three-prong approach is modeled after the Cal Green code. So Cal Green has a separate green code where the structure is very similar to this proposal. It's almost identical. And again, that's a prescriptive approach with the material caps of A1 through A3 phases. The second is a whole building LCA, and that can be defined in many different ways. It can capture many different phases, and that should be discussed if that is a pathway going forward. This proposal takes A through C into my memory, but exempts B6 and B7, which are the operational energy components. And then the third is the building reuse pathway. And so I've broken those three out below so we can have those separate discussions while we kind of come back into whether or not all three, or if any, would be recommended to go forward. And then the final thing I put on there was a much longer term discussion, but I think it's important if we were to treat this more as a roadmap exercise. What is appropriate, if anything, in the code? I will say, I do believe it is necessary on some time frame to put embodied carbon in the code, because that, in my opinion, is the enforceable mechanism that best aligns with how we design and enforce buildings. Now, that should be debated, whether or not that should be in the code or should be, like in other states, under some other state agency, if that were directed under rulemaking authority or specifically straight from the legislature. I think it is important that there are already policies in place on energy and emissions that do guide us on certain targets that we should keep in mind if we were to move forward in code development. And that is not true across all states. And so I think we are in a somewhat unique situation in Washington that aligns with some of the other states, California, Colorado, so forth. So with that, I haven't said anything specific yet, except to try to set this up. I do have an opinion, and I'll put my material representative hat on now. Obviously, it's very clear, as demonstrated in that letter, that well, the letter states that all pathways that this should be, that this process should stop here. Specifically, what I hear in stakeholder engagement, and I think does align with perhaps Representative Theringer, Representative Barno's letter, is concern about the material caps. Are we ready for that by publishing baselines either in code or in statute? And I'm not giving my opinion, but I think that's a very important question that we could take on first, is to establish whether a limited A1 through A3 is appropriate. Are we ready for it? And does it disadvantage any one of the different materials? Does it disadvantage, obviously, small businesses within the supply chain? That can be from the design standpoint as we're designing buildings, but also, in my mind, more importantly, does it disadvantage a small mill in Eastern Washington, for example, in the wood industry? Does it disadvantage a small batch plant? I think that could be a good starting point for us to discuss. And then also in that, as a reminder, this council has to consider the economic impacts of any of these decisions. As I've been doing research on this, it's very clear to me, well, that it's defensible that a whole building LCA can and should lead to reduced cost. If it doesn't, you're not doing it correctly. I have challenging questions on a prescriptive path, whether that leads to reduced cost in a limited framework. But I want to put that question out first for debate.
When you say prescriptive path, you mean the product compliance pathway?
Correct. The Q 103.3, as if you zoom in there,
Yeah.
that helps frame the three sections in this.
And I will ask, I know when we start talking about these three pathways get called different things at different times, and I'm wanting to make sure that we're clear about what we are discussing in each one. So I don't want confusion there. And Todd, I'm gonna add, Dustin added this to it. I sent this to him last night. I had a topic, and this topic can be reworded, but I will just say in general, this proposal creates a appendix. An appendix on November, whatever the date is, November 2nd, 2026, or whenever this next code becomes adopted and enforceable in the state. There's no change in the code. Nothing has changed. There are no new requirements from this appendix being included in the code on day one. What this would require, not require, what this allows for the appendix is for municipalities, and when I say municipalities, I group cities, counties, basically maybe it would be AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction. If they so choose, they can adopt this appendix. That adoption would require an ordinance that they pass. There are already things in this, the current proposal that that ordinance would need to address. Specifically right now, whether it in the current version, it's whether it is whether it applies to buildings over 50,000 square feet or buildings over 100,000 square feet. So in the current version, there is a requirement that adopting ordinances must address and specify something. I believe we could add other requirements or suggestions or flags within this document so that if a AHJ decides to adopt this by ordinance, we point out other things that they could or should include in that ordinance. And one of those things, I understand that there are questions about the product compliance pathway and whether the numbers in the table are the most current. What's the process for updating the numbers in the table? I believe we could include something in there that if a AHJ is going to do pass an ordinance and adopt it, that they should or maybe they are required to go through and make sure that the numbers are the most current. I know that those EPD numbers are changing. I'm not going to say constantly, but I certainly recognize that EPDs are on a 5-year cycle. Those are going to come up. Those numbers are going to change. This appendix would be enforced from, from the end of 2026 to the end of 2029, maybe something like that, roughly. And I know that those numbers in the table are going to continue to change between now and November of 2026, and certainly between now and the end of 2029 when the next code would be coming into play. So I believe that we have to have something in here that requires and or strongly suggests that if you are going to adopt this, that you need to address that issue and update those numbers. So that's my comment, topic for discussion, and maybe that's the way that we should talk about these. These are topics for discussion. Todd, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to raise my hand. I'll let Angela go first.
All right. Angela?
As okay, I'm not sure on your request to have basically this appendix become a living document, as it would sort of be for these numbers. I'm not sure how or who you think would enforce that. I mean, I could see maybe them having an up-to-date table when they adopt it, but requiring them to update it throughout the code cycle. I mean, so how often would they need to do that? Who's going to check those numbers? Every time they change them, they need to bring them back to the council for approval.
No.
I think it would be a very unprecedented move to put a living table into the code.
Angela, I was obviously not clear. My suggestion is at the time of adoption, those numbers are updated. And then that ordinance says these are the numbers for this ordinance until the ordinance gets updated, and that would be at the choice of the AHJ. So that's the idea suggestion that I have. And so no, not a living document.
Okay, that's better. Thank you.
Todd?
Yeah, and I think as we continue to come into this, we need to define what success looks like. And to some, success looks like all three of these pathways exist and there's flexibility in the code. I mean, to others, success looks like this is not anywhere in the code, and this is, we're letting legislature address this. I think what I've come to the conclusion is, in some time frame, we will be getting to LCA information in the code to align with our state's goals on emissions. That's a very big statement, and whether or not this moves us most effectively towards that is a question. But it has to be equitable. And I could get very deep right away in materials on challenges of equity. But I think the question I have for everyone right now is, what is our goal? Is the goal to have an easy application right now, which is how I characterize a material only pathway? Just set aside the equity part. Is that what success looks like? Or does success look like we're accurately accounting for emissions over some time frame, knowing that, yes, that's hard right now, and the data is getting better, and that's part of the process with Buy Clean, Buy Fair with Washington Commerce is to define for the state what this LCA and EPD, especially on the material scales phases, what A1 through A3 is. And as we learn and we get better data and so forth, how are we applying that and where? And is that going to be professional practice in architecture and engineering? Or what is it going to be in 5 years? And quite frankly, is this something that becomes very automated just in the simple design process? So we're thinking too narrowly right now what is easy and what is going to be commonplace in 5 years. And where I'm going with this is, I come from the energy efficiency. I come from structural engineering and architecture, but 15 years ago, as the state was beginning to mandate energy efficiency, especially in classrooms, that was why University of Washington, University of Oregon, WSU put together the Integrated Design Lab Network to provide technical assistance to professional practice that wasn't quite ready yet for that type of energy analysis. Now that's commonplace. We have an army of people that are reaching the associate levels in these firms across Seattle and so forth that went through this network, and every firm has that capability. I think this is analogous, so I'd like to think 5-10 years ahead of where we're going, and then that helps guide us in what is appropriate in the code, what is appropriate in other state agencies such as Commerce, and what is appropriate in straight to policy and questions for the legislature. So yes, we can adopt by local jurisdiction, but we also could have a significant contribution by just informing and asking questions to the legislature what is needed to fill in gaps. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Todd. But I am gonna, Tom, I'll call on you in a minute. Dustin, you do need to add Tom's name down below. And I do want to be clear, there are technical questions, so the idea is we have 10 days to submit questions to Dustin. Tom, if you have questions, comments, you can add those down below. Angela, Katie, and Dan, also, if you have, here are issues or topics that we should discuss and make sure that we're included. You know, email those to Dustin and we will include those. So this is a working document. The idea or the intent is that this document will capture both public comment as well as committee comments on issues that we should discuss. So, Tom, go ahead.
Okay, well, with that in mind, you know, I'll just say right now without writing anything out, well, I will follow up with that, but you know, my concerns have always been, you know, that maybe this is just a technical journal document and not ready to be inserted in the code and implemented right now. You know, I think that it's going to bring forward a lot of questions, you know, equity questions in materials and processes. And it'll resurface the site versus source energy question again. I think Todd kind of mentioned that a little bit in his last point on there in red, you know, why are we considering, you know, all of the embodied carbon in materials, but we're not considering when our tables have metrics that equate the use of energy and carbon use, you know, with all of that, why we're not looking at, you know, source energy, you know, in the same light as we are materials. So I think that's a big question that, you know, is going to surface one way or another, you know, as this goes forward. So that's just my statement.
Okay.
So I think that, you know, I mean, to sum it up, I think that this isn't ready for prime time yet.
Okay. And Tom, I appreciate that and put that in there. And I think the idea today is for us to get these topics for discussion on the table, and you know, then this committee will go through and discuss those topics. And at the end of the day, you know, we need to decide on what we move forward and move back to the State Building Code Council. So those are the ideas that we have put out there on the table. Todd, I think that we've got an hour left. Looking at your ideas are the most formalized or clearly stated. I am going to suggest that we go up to the bottom item on your list. If you can go up just a little bit, Dustin, the operational. Now go down. Todd's lost. Yeah, there. Operational carbon needs to be factored into embodied carbon targets.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out we do have a hand in the audience.
Okay. I was hoping to get us. I'll go ahead and call on Matthew. I am hoping for us. You know, the idea is we were going to go through this spreadsheet and get the concepts and ideas out there. Then I would like to have a discussion amongst the committee, and then we will open it up to public questions. So, Matthew, go ahead.
I actually had a question from about 15 minutes ago. It's a quick one, and it's for Dustin. So the document that you posted with the code language, it had comments from CLF and perhaps another group. That document that's posted, what did you do with those comments? Did you integrate the comments into the document? Did you, like, I just want to know what the state was. Were all the comments accepted, not accepted, put to the side? I'm just trying to understand what I'm working with.
So the comments there should be on the side. There's some integrated code language. I would actually probably point you to the Carbon Leadership Forum to talk about exactly how those were integrated. That document was submitted to me, and I have not done anything with that document to integrate comments into code language. We're still discussing that document.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, so Todd, what I would like I think that the next steps are for us to have this conversation about your bottom item there about operational carbon. And I just would like to make a statement, given my, as a structural engineer, somebody who is involved in embodied carbon and certainly working towards within DCI, my company, reducing the embodied carbon of our structures. I have an overall challenge with the definitions that the industry has come up with in general, and meaning that right now Todd says operational carbon. In reality, the industry right now talks about operational energy, and it is talked about as an energy unit. And all of our energy codes are based on operational energy, not operational carbon. However, really at the end of the day, the unit of concern is the amount of carbon that is going into the atmosphere for both of those, both the embodied carbon and the operational energy. And so I just have a personal opinion that we could or should be talking about embodied energy rather than embodied carbon. So I think that that's just something that my personal and professional opinion for consideration. And then I don't necessarily disagree conceptually and from a long term. And again, this is my personal thoughts. Long term, should we or could we integrate both operational energy and embodied energy into a common document? And the concept being, having a limit that includes both. So if I'm better on an operational energy, can I be a little bit worse on embodied energy? Maybe. I think that conceptually that there's some validity in that. My question or concern is, given that where we are at today with an energy code, with considering this as a potential, just an appendix to the building code, I am not sure. It's a big step forward and a big ask for us to try to do that. And so my idea, and I think I've shared this with you, Todd, is long term. I think that there's some validity in this concept to marry these two together, but I think it is a long-term goal. I think we're a long ways away from it. So with that, I'll turn it over to you and we can have further discussion.
Okay, thank you, Roger. And I don't disagree. And I want to preface this by saying this is the big roadmap discussion. This is not, yes, I have written specific code to try to understand what this could look like that aligns with code that is emerging in Europe and Scandinavia. I am not proposing to drop that code into this group and for adoption. But I think it's important, if we're going to have this discussion about roles and targets, we have to look at our state and the current context, and there are some unique considerations here. Our council took time this year to in the energy code to address the site versus source based energy, and to reinforce that our energy codes will remain as site based energy, not emissions. And there's a lot of reasons why, and we're not going to rehash that here, but that's a decision that the council evaluated and took time with stakeholders to understand. And so that's our energy code. There are some that believe carbon should be in the energy code. I don't agree with that. I think we need to keep this clean, that our energy code is about energy efficiency of the building. So then the question, to Tom's point, is well, where is source-based considerations factored in? Because now we're jumping to emissions and utilities, so forth. Our Clean Energy Transformation Act, our Clean Building Act, those start to now bridge into the world of emissions, which we have said or have discussed that are not part of our building energy code. So then that raises the question, is the building code the appropriate place to start having this alignment of state policy that's focused on emissions long-term, and there is a definite roadmap, a step down of Clean Energy Transformation Act. So there's a moving target, right? The energy today of the energy tomorrow will have fewer emissions than energy today. That's mandated. In addition, on a different time frame, we have energy efficiency, and we have been on a 10+ year step down to 2031 on our energy code, and we're getting to the hard part now. That's why the energy code is so difficult, because we're getting past the low-hanging fruit of what makes our buildings more energy efficient. That's the EUI part. We're already designing and already can calculate EUI, energy use intensity, in our buildings. And so the question becomes, if you're going to take a holistic approach on a building over what's typically accepted as a 60-year life cycle, it's easy to calculate the embodied carbon piece, but the question becomes, how are you getting credit for the things that we're already doing as a state on the energy side for emissions and on the operational, which is the B6, B7. So you either have to actually anticipate that and calculate that, or like Scandinavia does, say, what is our total emissions target, subtract out a weighted step down on the operational emissions, and say that represents an embodied carbon budget. And that's how it's talked about in Scandinavia. And then what that points more to is that starts to give us actual numbers that we're designing to, if we're taking more of an LCA approach. Then that gets into discussion about which phases are we including, and we can start to unpack how we're meeting those targets. Certain materials, and I'm not going to get specific into this here now, but it is, in my opinion, from the material standpoint, not equitable to just say A1 through A3. If we're excluding A4, that is favoring certain materials. Certain materials are very heavy up front on the A2, just on the very nature of how the material is manufactured in the Southeast and shipped to the Northwest. Other materials are more regional and are more distributed and come to, only a few large facilities across the nation, so they have a very high A4. Now, I'm trying not to get in any one specific material, but it's obviously not as easy as A1 through A3. The report by the Carbon Leadership Forum that the council did accept and forward on to the legislature last year goes into this a little bit. And what we're really saying on the prescriptive pathway, the product pathway, is how representative is that as a proxy for what we're really trying to get to. And the code does that all the time. So we can discuss if we really want a proxy in there, or we really want just the whole thing, and what does that mean long term. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
There's two kind of housekeeping things I wanted to comment on, and then I'll call on Katie. The first is I do want us to, my intent here is to have this conversation about the bottom item, operational carbon. So I want us to focus on that. What I would like to do after this discussion, and I kind of question whether we're going to take any action on any of these today, or whether we wait until the next meeting. Eventually we need to close all of these items, but so my intent would be then to move up to the 103.3, 0.4, and 0.5 and start having various conversations about each. And then my second point is I would like to focus this on committee discussion here. Once the committee members have had an opportunity, I'm fine opening this conversation up to the public to also comment. So Katie, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I've been thinking about this, and I'm just wondering if it would make sense to have a definition of what equity is in the context of what, Todd was just saying. And I don't know if that's possible, just because it's come up a couple of times and I haven't been able to find it. But that might also help with the being clear about what that is, because I do think that Todd just raised a really important issue, and I think some of the public also in relation to materials and everything. So I don't know if that's a helpful piece, and I don't have any language to add to that, but I'm wondering if that's possible.
Todd, do you want to respond?
I can give a little bit here, but I think then we would want to lean on the material stakeholders in particular, and I'm speaking highly centric from that material standpoint on that A1 through A3. We have to really ask ourselves in our current, especially in the code writing, whether or not we're disadvantaging a small business or we're disadvantaging a certain region, because as this code is asking, it's trying to get more product and factory specific data, right? There's a recognition that we have to discuss when is it appropriate to take an industry average, and there are a lot of times that is appropriate, that data in some ways better fills in the gaps that we have, and so it holistically it is okay to do that at times. Other times there might be a reason why we'd want to get more specific. I know some believe that is in regulation, so that should be discussed. Others think it's competitive advantage. And so I was having this discussion the other day with a component level supplier that works on industry averages. And I was trying to demonstrate why certain secondary manufacturers in particular would want to better understand their specific LCA, fold it into an assembly level LCA so that can be competitive advantage. So it's not just the regulatory piece. There's also the opportunity for innovation and driving, our especially our rural economies, in my opinion, in a lot of these materials, that this can be a competitive advantage within the state of Washington. So there is economic development discussion here, but also if you're not careful about the regulation piece, you can very quickly disadvantage a small mill, and when I say mill, I'm talking about any material, or you're disadvantaging a certain resource extraction, harvesting, whatever it's going to be, that might have other environmental and societal value. So we want to be careful about that, because there are that can go down a slippery slope on what is included in in the different phases. But that's what worries me, and I think we have to have a very specific economic impact and small business impact discussion about each one of these.
Tom, I see your hand up. I just wanted to raise the focus, I guess. We need to be careful about what we can and can't do on this as the BFRW committee that is considering this particular proposal. Doing a complete economic development, considering economic development, there's some things that are outside of our purview, I think, to really consider in depth. I do think that we are required to have economic impact analysis and understand it, and certainly consider small business. So just want to be careful that we don't go too far and start considering too many different various things. So Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just comment to that little piece. It seems like the economic development and the economic impact, with respect to what we're looking at here, are pretty synonymous, in my opinion. So, but getting back to it, I think Todd is spot on. I think there's far many more things that we need to be considering here. And, if it is determined to be outside the purview of this committee, then that puts the writing on the wall. So, but I don't think we should ignore part of it just because it's hard. I don't think we should pass anything or do anything that jeopardizes those issues that Todd was bringing up.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands. Including I'm looking at the attendees. Matthew, go ahead.
It takes a second to get unmuted there. Thank you. I just appreciate the comments on competitiveness in the marketplace and how the code can or cannot disadvantage a certain business. And without going into any specifics, because I don't think that's what we want now. I mean, that is a very legitimate concern of my company. Competitiveness in the marketplace. We want to be able to make sure that we can sell our products in the marketplace. And we also believe that it's healthy for the marketplace to have multiple producers and competitors in the marketplace. So at the appropriate time, I'd be glad to expand on that.
Okay, thank you. Corey?
Yeah, thanks, Roger. I do want to echo Matt's comments and also thank Todd for his efforts, communication, and his outreach.
All right. Tim? And I will, as Tim is unmuting, I appreciate everybody's comments, but I also would ask, let's keep our comments as clear and concise as we can related to this topic. So
Yeah, go ahead. This is Tim with AGC. I just was, again, just because I've been following the State Building Code Council for so long, and I remember the debate 3 or 4 years ago on this topic. Is I vaguely remember Micah talking about the local building officials and their association not wanting to implement this, that it was burdensome for them. I don't know. Is there any comments or any information coming from local building officials on whether or not they want this to be on their plate or not?
Tim, I'm not positive that is addressing the operational carbon comment that we're looking at. I would just say that we do have representatives on the State Building Code Council, including Angela as on the BFRW committee that is from the building official. So there are representatives. So Adam, go ahead.
Thanks for having me. Hi, I'm Adam Slivers, a structural engineer at Holmes, based in Seattle. I understand there are numerous concerns about this EPD pathway, the Q1033. Seems like there's manufacturers who feel that they would have hardship releasing EPDs or feel that they would be negatively impacted by direct comparison. I agree with this concern, but I suggest that this prescriptive method could be replaced by whole building LCA instead of throwing away this proposal. I worked on a 35,000 square foot public project in 2018. It was about $25 million hard cost. We conducted an LCA to reduce the impacts, including global warming potential, by more than 10%. The effort was not a significant cost, and though additional fees were requested, since it was for lead rating, I would estimate it was probably $10,000 at the time. The choices were cost neutral. The tools we used were free. Since 2018, or since 2013 when I started doing LCAs, LCA software and expertise has made great strides. I'm a steering committee member for the Carbon Leadership Forum Seattle Hub. This is just a community group. I lead a monthly call for designers to get support on LCA tools and practice. Based on the questions and presentations from this group and my own experience, whole building LCA is not hard. Furthermore, as a signatory of SE 2050, which is a commitment of over 100 structural engineering firms, and I would say all major firms in the US, this effort studies and reduces global warming potential in their structural designs. The number of design professionals doing whole building LCA has greatly expanded. Same thing with AIA's 2030 commitment. So my experience with whole building LCA is it's not difficult for designers working on projects over 50,000 square feet. One can use whole building LCA to calculate global warming potential savings made by reusing existing buildings. This is similar to the expertise developed through energy code updates. While whole building LCA software is informed by EPDs, it's primarily a performance-based approach. To make global warming potential improvements, designers often make choices on materials used, as well as performance of specific categories of products to be validated by EPDs. And these are informed on a project basis while evaluating cost. More often than not, the cost is neutral. In fact, we've seen the cost being, there being significant cost savings for reduction of specific materials. But a single manufacturer won't be financially ruined by the performance required of one building project. Embodied, just a side note from what I'm hearing today is I don't feel that embodied energy can be a surrogate for embodied carbon because there are chemical processes in certain manufacturing that release greenhouse gases that can exacerbate the carbon emissions relative to energy consumption. Two examples of this are cement manufacturing and refrigerant installation. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. You're kind of jumping up to what my next topic is, and that is start digging into 103.3.4 and or 0.5. So Todd, your hand is up if you want to comment.
Well, I'll save most of my comments for when we want to go there, Roger, but I want to thank Adam for his thought leadership on this. And you know, just I appreciate, I see a few other names that are in that world. I try to show up to those meetings and listen where the AEC world is right now. And it's fascinating. And it instills a lot of confidence with where we're going on the ability to do this harder analysis. And so, and another way to phrase that is it's really a performance-based approach. So let's not put the easy button in front of the, you know, the long-term goal. So thank you, Adam.
And I thank you. And I'm going to move on. So again, I don't envision that we're going to make any decisions on anything today. I think the operational carbon, that lower item, Dustin, if you can maybe shade it or something, saying, just identifying that we've had a discussion. We haven't made any decisions, yay or nay, or done anything. I do want to, so Todd, you're kind of I'm going to call you out a little bit. You continue to name prescriptive and prescriptive pathway, meaning product compliance pathway, and performance-based pathway, which is the whole building compliance pathway. And I just want to make sure those names get you know, used at various times. I also appreciate Adam's comment, and I've been wanting to figure out the best time for me to express this experience that we have had at DCI, and that is, in addition to a number of the things that Adam mentioned, the material optimization is one way, and in fact, it is the main way that DCI engineers attempts to reduce embodied carbon. And you can look at our website. There is a blog post for a courthouse project, 7 stories concrete, where through design decisions, we were able to optimize material quantities, reducing the embodied carbon of the structure only by 23%. And we saved approximately $250,000. So again, whole building LCA pathway, that was not the product compliance pathway, but by doing whole building LCA and considering life cycle analysis of the structure, we were able to show significant savings in carbon and in cost. So moving to product compliance pathway, whole building compliance pathway, and building reuse pathway, my understanding from conversations and from the comments that we've had is there is significant concern about 103.3. Given that we have half an hour left, I'm going to suggest that we not get into the discussion about 103.3 today. we will certainly. I would like us to have a conversation about 103.5 and 103.4. So what I would like to do is to jump to the building reuse pathway. Todd, you've got a technical, I guess I would ask you to talk about your comment about 103.5. And I will couch this. I think Todd's comment, his first comment up at the top is maybe should we allow people to, that isn't the right word. This is an appendix. Would it make sense for some way for people to adopt 103.4 and 103.5, but not 103.3? And maybe, I think that that's something that we can consider. There are three options out here in front of us as part of this proposal. You know, I think anything is on the table as far as this committee is. Does the committee say move this forward with 103.4 and 103.5, but completely nix 103.3? I don't agree with that, but that's certainly on the table as a possibility. So I would like us to start with a conversation about the building reuse, because I actually think that that's probably the easier, the lower bar as far as depth of topic. But so Angela, your hand is up, and then Todd, I'd like you to kind of present your thoughts on 103.5.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about your comment about eliminating 103.3. Is that what it was? These are choices that designers and things can make. So they don't have to choose 103.3. So in leaving it in there as an option, I guess, I mean, I don't know. I guess though that's the one that you're saying could disadvantage businesses, even as the easier one, but taking out certain things. So I mean, when there's options, I don't know that we necessarily need to remove it. That's all I was thinking.
And without getting too far into the first item on Todd's list, that Angela is my thoughts as well, is there are three options for you to meet this. And the whole building LCA, in my mind, is the easier, softer way and relatively easy way for people to meet this requirement. But Todd, go ahead. Let's talk about the building reuse pathway.
Okay, thank you. And I'll preface this by saying I cut my teeth in Seattle doing adaptive reuse on Capitol Hill, so I know this world well, especially with seismic retrofits and architectural, renovations and adaptive reuse. So I'm a big fan of this, and this is an important strategy in our state. There's a lot of good reasons why reuse is absolutely important, and the report shows, demonstrates that it always wins. So if you have the option to reuse a building, it is advantageous, and this is simply saying they're given an exception. The question I have is simply, is it the role of the State Building Code Council and our rulemaking authority to make that type of decision rather than a technical question? I think the technical question is clear. I just don't think it should be on the State Building Code Council to make that decision. That's a policy decision whether that exemption should be taken. The second part I just want to say on this is more of the engineer in me. If we were to simply bypass that, we're not collecting any data, and that's not actually helping us from the data collection and transparency piece, but also from the competitive piece. You're taking away that thing that can be competitive advantage for suppliers. I don't look at this as regulatory. I look at this as an opportunity for innovation. I gave a lot of opinions there, and I said I wasn't going to.
And I will, I'll explain. Well, Representative Dewar, why don't you go ahead?
I don't know if this is the right time for this question, but I am curious, when you make recommendations, do you also look at, I guess, the potential for like what I'm thinking about, I guess, is in reuse, I often hear it's not a viable option because of the energy code requirements moving, and reusing a building. And so I'm curious if the State Building Code Council in its capacity uh, can make recommendations in terms of things that get in the way of implementing some of these options. Happy to take it offline if that's not appropriate at this time.
I will comment. We study converting office to residential in the city of Seattle all the time. And the structural part, there's two big pieces that are the cost impact. Number one is the seismic upgrade concern. What is the cost of seismically upgrading if you make this change? And the other is updating the energy code. So I would move you to, from a legislative perspective, if there is conversation about ways to minimize, if you are in certain situations, I'm sure the whole industry would love to take a look at that. I think that that's kind of outside of this building reuse as far as embodied carbon goes, but I think that that is a very valid topic of consideration.
Yeah, I thought it might be, but I haven't really watched a lot of your meetings, and I obviously want things to be implemented. So if there are ways to kind of address barriers, I would be interested in that conversation offline. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that would be something that would be would require legislative direction. So Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Dewar. It's a good question. And one of the things we struggle with in the building codes, specifically the IBC, is where do we make these exceptions and exemptions, I should say. And in my research, and Angela and others might be able to help me, I can't think of other ones where the code makes a blanket exemption. And that's why I'm putting out the question whether or not this is more of a policy decision, that there's some other reason why this is, for the good of all Washingtonians to do this, right? The health and well-being of Washingtonians. The examples I can think of are fire and seismic and so forth. When we have an existing buildings, there are examples where we might lower the risk factors and design to that different, risk factor. And maybe where I'm going is that I see the carbon code, embodied carbon code, as a performance metric, just like we would have a performance metric on seismic fire, so forth. And we have something we can aim at. So, but a blanket exemption, I can't think of where that exists.
So if I can, Todd, I have additional comments about building reuse. I'm actually pulling up the reduction requirements, building reuse. So being a structural engineer who does attempt to reduce embodied carbon, we are looking at a project. If somebody wants to put together a X square foot project on a particular site. There is in my purview, what we typically look at is what the structure. And this is not necessarily a conversion of one building to another and you've met the requirements. It is, we are going to create a new building. Can we reuse the floors that are there, or can we reuse the exterior wall? You often see, this gets into the historic, if there's a historic facade that we can't move, we keep the historic facade. From an embodied carbon perspective, if you are keeping the embodied carbon of that facade is already in the building. And so rather than tearing it down and putting in new cladding of whatever kind, you have made a significant reduction in embodied carbon because you are reusing that particular piece. The decision as to whether you do that or whether you tear the whole thing down, certainly there are requirements of historic, historic facade. There are, what would it be, planning requirements or other requirements that would say yay or nay, you can or can't take that down. Then it becomes, if you are reusing a portion of a structure, do you meet this code? And I actually strongly believe that this should be included, and it is a very simple off-ramp. I mean, there's conversations about off-ramps within this requirement. If you decide to, if this appendix happens to be adopted within a municipality, and it's adopted in full, so all three of these options are included. If you decide to reuse some of the building, you've met the requirements. And I think that having an option where it very clearly where you don't need to do anything with 103.3 or 103.4 if you're reusing it is a very is something that we should drive for. I mean, that's from an embodied carbon perspective, it's a great solution is to reuse something. Financially, coming from the private sector, financially, this just to not have to do a whole building LCA, that's not going to be the driver, whether you reuse this building or not. It's going to be basically, does it make sense from a construction perspective? Can you meet the energy code? You know, how are you doing all of these other things? But just from a opportunity or an option of if you are building a building that qualifies under this 50,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet, and for some other reason you are reusing a portion of the structure, I think that it's a very easy thing that we should have of, okay, you're doing this for a number of reasons. You've met the intent and the requirements of the appendix Q or whatever it becomes called. So it's my opinion and thoughts as a structural engineer. So Todd?
I support that. I think there are valid points there, Roger. My question is, we will eventually in this conversation get to off-ramps, and it's very important that, let's say we went down a pathway, whole building compliance pathway. There needs to be, in my opinion, a much broader inclusion of other building typologies, and then a very specific and targeted discussion about off-ramps for those different building types. And maybe what you're saying is this is one of those building types, but that's kind of a different way to approach the problem, to say we're entering in, and now, like in the building code, we're starting to make exceptions or different approaches, and maybe that's better than saying just a whole section is just, you get to completely bypass, you know, any consideration of embodied carbon. And I will point out that even in this code, in the whole building LCA section, there already is language in there that starts to define, if you have existing building, you don't obviously have to include A1 through A3 of those existing materials. So it starts to get factored in already in that calculation. And you're muted. And then I also will say, we know that on these energy on some of these reuse and retrofit structures, they are material intensive. So these envelopes, these steel frames, these things like that, they're intensive.
Can be.
Concrete shear walls, so forth. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call on Jan. So I guess, Todd, I wanted to clarify. So your thought is, could you somehow meld the off-ramp or advantage of 103.5 and include it in 103.4? Is that?
Yeah, yes. It's already starting. 103.4 is already starting to address the exceptions. You're not including A1 through A3. And then I think not right now, there's going to have to be a much bigger discussion about off-ramps and so forth of different building typologies and this could be part of that discussion. I don't know that it has to be called out up front as a separate section.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead. I don't see any other committee member hands up. So John, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, this is John Spanier. I'm an architect in Seattle, and just maybe the question around the building reuse pathway is not to consider it so much of as an exemption per se, but kind of like a cheat sheet weighted calculation for an LCA, like a preemptive LCA, because of the amount of recycled material that's used and embodied carbon that's captured. And I see that specifically kind of in the language when they're trying to do that with the 45% retention of the building, that it's almost like the back end of the 103.3. It's sort of a prescription for identify that, yes, enough carbon has been captured by this amount of conservation of the existing building that we can assume that it's going to meet the other criteria, as if you had done a whole building life cycle analysis. And I think you could probably do some modeling if you wanted on case studies to determine, like, okay, a couple different building types, different amounts of materials kept and retained, and an imaginary or real project where you calculate the additional new materials and what have you to see if it actually pans out. And maybe the 45% isn't the right metric. Maybe it's a slightly larger, or, I think you could probably scientifically understand like that you are actually capturing enough carbon to actually meet the requirement, rather than saying it's specifically an exemption. Does that make sense?
No, it does to me. Tom, I'm going to call on Michelle Lambert. Her hand was up, and then I'll call on you.
Hi, thank you. Michelle Lambert with the Carbon Leadership Forum. And I just wanted to touch on this, and also just touch on the previous conversation that we were talking about with equity, and just illustrate that we feel like the 3-pathway approach really does get to and address that issue of equity. So, allowing project teams to choose one of the 3 pathways that feels the most appropriate for the project type, the location, also the project team, and their level of expertise in whole building LCA, and other the other approaches, and allows also kind of puts building reuse existing buildings into the same sort of equitable choice options to make to be able to comply. So just, again, we support the 3 pathways, and feel like it does actually, the flexibility inherent in that allows for some more sort of flexibility and choice in a similar way that meeting operational energy efficiency isn't always necessarily prescriptive. Like there's only one pathway allowed to meet, a certain reduction of energy use. There's a sort of a parallel here to allowing different approaches to meet the goal of reducing embodied carbon.
Thank you, Michelle. And I will comment the conversation that we had about with Representative Dewar about converting an office to residential, a whole building like that. If there are right now, what holds that back is other economic requirements, seismic upgrades, and energy code compliance. If there was something legislatively that allowed that to be more economically viable, again, that is the least embodied carbon that you could possibly have to end up with a residential project, is to reuse the existing structure. So I tend to agree, having that in there as an option does make sense in my opinion. But Tom, go ahead.
It almost seems to me, and I think Todd was touching on this earlier, that, perhaps instead of having these different pathways, there's a more blended approach where you've got a carbon budget, that you need to meet a target, no matter how you get there. And that gives the maximum amount of flexibility, and having perhaps energy included in this as well. It gives maximum flexibility to how a project might be constructed.
Okay, Todd?
Yeah, these are all good points. I want to mainly thank Michelle for her comments and comment on that. But my concern is that just like in our development code, this is one step away from attaching something like, I'm going extreme here, or in a local historic preservation district. Like we're getting into areas that probably just are exempting things that I'm not sure belongs in the building code. I think it belongs in some sort of policy or something else. But then Michelle made some really good points, and I want to kind of ask questions around that. What is the long-term goal? And I think we need to refocus back on where we started this discussion. The long-term goal is reducing total emissions. And so maybe a three-prong approach accelerates that in the short term. But again, the focus on professional practice is maybe not the correct focus, because we're hearing from professional practice, they're eager to get into this. And I'm not being extreme here. Some of the last discussions in architecture engineering is, how are we using AI to give us real-time feedback? We're already designing that. And I'm not saying that to be current. I'm saying that because these tools are getting more sophisticated, and this will not be hard in the near future. So I don't know that the focus should be on the design teams. I think the design teams want to step up to this. I think the supply chain wants to step up to this. And I'll put that challenge out there.
I'll actually reply, Todd. We've had a whole lot of focus on in this discussion that we've had in the 9 months about this proposal on really 103.3, which is a procurement materials conversation. Being a practitioner, my focus has been on 103.4 and maybe 103.5. Those are, so I would almost suggest to you, your comment, turn it around as, for a new building, there is the design side and there is the construction procurement side. And having tools in this proposal that allows the design side to meet this requirement and take the pressure off of the procurement side, I think is advantageous for everybody. I understand some of the concerns, and we'll get into it probably next meeting on 103.3 and have a in-depth conversation about the challenges. But in my opinion, having a robust 103.4 and 103.5 where the design portion of the project can meet this requirement is not only a really advantageous for everybody, but to be honest, that's where I see this going. I think, doing whole building LCAs and showing that you've reduced the embodied carbon is I'm just going to put it out there. It is an easy thing for us to do. DCI does whole building LCAs. We do it for lead points. It is a relatively easy way for us to meet this requirement. So go ahead, Todd.
Okay, one last point. So
Yep.
If I understand this correctly, if there's this exemption in place, if I'm a material manufacturer, supplier, how is my investment in, first of all, EPDs, LCAs, but also technologies that might lower that LCA? How am I capitalizing on that if it's a complete exemption on those projects? And so that's a little more of a market-driven, question. Yeah.
I think if you have developed a competitive advantage, you would be able to meet that through the 103.3. You would more easily be able to do that. So I think it's still, the overall project needs to consider what is the best, most advantageous way for us to meet 103.3, 0.4, or 0.5. And there are a lot of factors that play into that. If you as a supplier have developed something that gives you a competitive advantage to meet this, that would give you that opportunity to utilize that for a project. So Michelle, your hand went up and then went back down. I don't know if you had a comment. Go ahead.
I can't.
Yeah,
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. No, I think it was just from my previous comment, just supporting the three pathway approach. I didn't have a second comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna, Dustin, if you can under 103.5 also put that we discussed that. I am going to suggest that we go ahead and close well, wait a minute, we have another business item. So I'm gonna close agenda item number, I don't have the number in front of me, 6, I think it is, 5. And the intent will be at our next meeting. So number one, I would assume that this spreadsheet will be filled out and there will be more comments and things for us to address. My suggestion at our next meeting is we will jump into the whole building LCA and then the material compliance pathway and have robust discussions about those like we have the first 2 items. And we can then figure out, at some point we need to start moving forward. But I think I appreciate what we've done. I appreciate everybody's comments. I think the discussions we've had have been very, very helpful and robust and good. So with that, I'm going to move on to other business. And the only thing I wanted to just double check. So Dustin and Todd remind me, and this was 3 hours ago, Ken had a concern. It's something that we are addressing. Is that something that we need to keep on our BFRW agenda, or is that just something that we are taking care of?
I think that is something we need to keep on the agenda for next time. I'm reaching out to Brandon to talk about what was actually discussed at that meeting. It appears that Sound Transit is having some issues when they're doing their installations. There is provisions that they would like to use in the fire code, but those same provisions are not the same in the building code, and the building code supersedes the fire code in our hierarchy, and they're looking for some correlation between those 2 codes.
So can I ask, is this a correlation between a code change proposal?
No, it's existing code.
Okay.
It's an off-cycle code correlation that was missed.
Okay. So it is that's what I am curious about. And I need to think about, given our significant workload between now and July 18th, is that an issue that the BFRW needs to or should address before that? Because I think any changes we make, if it's not part of the triennial, the changes don't have to go through the CR 102. And so Todd, if you can.
Well, I think Dustin was probably going to say this. I think Ken brought it to this committee because it's a correlation between the building and fire code. So
okay.
I think he raised the question, where is the best place to bring this?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't take a significant amount of work. And I believe Ken would probably be gracious enough to provide the language that needs to be changed. And so if I can get that to bring to one of our future meetings, not necessarily the next one, but maybe the regular scheduled one on the 18th, maybe we can get that taken care of with a CR 105 and expedited rulemaking. That don't believe that they're looking to change any regulatory effect across all the codes, but just to make sure the correlation is good there. And so I would propose that I reach out to Ken, and maybe we keep this as a last item on our agendas, just to give an update of where we're at with getting the CR 105 in place to make the change.
Okay. If I could ask for our agenda for the next meeting, you listed as agenda item, inserted as a separate agenda item. And so we
Yes.
keep track of it. And then let's make sure we get it addressed. Todd?
Yeah.
Well, and this might be too aggressive, but maybe offline, Dustin, we can talk about this. If it's more appropriate and we have a pathway to just take it straight to the full council on the 27th, we could do it there too.
Yep.
So.
Sure. Okay. All right. I want to thank everybody from the public and the committee members. We've had a really good, robust discussion today. I know that it has just started. We do have a lot of work in front of us, but I also know we're making great progress towards getting the issues and items, topics out on the table, having a discussion, and eventually we are going to figure out, what we do with this proposal and what gets sent back to the full council. So with that, I am going to adjourn our meeting, and I will give you a full 1 minute back to your day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Everybody.
Thank you.
So generous.